Ever had one of those moments where you realize, like, your perception of something was completely off?
Mm,
That's me with osteopathy. I always pictured it as, mainly back pain focused.
yeah.
But digging into the material you sent, wow, it's so much more. Like, do you know osteopaths could even help with colic in babies?
Yeah, it's easy to kind of get stuck on that image of osteopathy as, just back cracking and stuff.
Right.
But it really is about a much more holistic approach to the musculoskeletal system.
Okay.
And that encompasses everything from, sure, joint issues to even digestive problems, sleep difficulties in infants, all sorts of things.
It's fascinating. So they're really like connecting the dots between all the different systems in the body.
Exactly.
It's not just treating the symptom. It's like
Yeah.
they're looking for the root cause.
Yeah, and that's a core part of the osteopathic philosophy, this understanding that everything's interconnected.
Yeah.
So that nagging back pain, it might actually stem from muscle imbalances, bad posture, even stress.
Yeah.
They look at all of that.
That makes a lot of sense. And I have to say, learning about this career path with RoleCatcher's insights, it's got me thinking, this is a field with a lot of depth.
It really is.
And speaking of which, it's also a field that's, get this, projected to grow a whopping 22% over the next decade, according to RoleCatcher.
Wow.
It's clearly a career on the rise.
It is. And, it really speaks to that human desire to make a real difference in the world, right?
Yeah.
This isn't just a job, it's a profession that's deeply rooted in empathy and a deep understanding of the human body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established it's not just about backs.
Right.
It's about a whole body approach.
Yeah.
And it's a career with a lot of potential.
Yeah.
But what does it actually take to become an osteopath? What's the path look like?
Well, it's not a quick fix career, let me tell you.
Okay.
Think 4 years of dedicated undergraduate studies,
Right.
followed by another 4 in a specialized osteopathy school.
8 years. Okay, so we're talking about a serious commitment here.
Okay.
I'm guessing those classes aren't for the faint of heart either.
There's something else.
What's the curriculum like?
Well, you're going to dive deep into anatomy and physiology, of course.
Of course.
Getting up close and personal with all those bones and muscles, right?
Right.
But it goes beyond memorizing diagrams. There's biomechanics, which is basically the science behind how your body moves.
Biomechanics.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty intense.
It's fascinating stuff. Think about like all the forces acting on your joints,
Yeah.
their posture,
Yeah.
everything that goes into movement. Osteopaths need to understand all of that.
Wow.
And here's something that might surprise you. Psychology. It's a key part of the curriculum, too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me of something I read in RoleCatcher. They mentioned that something like 63% of the core skills for osteopaths actually involve reading comprehension.
Wow, that's a lot of reading.
Yeah, we're talking about like digesting complex medical literature. But then right alongside that, they had skills like active listening,
Yeah.
social perceptiveness,
Right.
even strong writing skills. So I'm starting to see why that psychology element is so important.
Absolutely, because you're not just treating a body, you're building trust with a person.
Right.
You have to understand their concerns, explain these often really complicated treatments in a way that makes sense, There's a real human element to it.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of like a detective and a therapist at the same time.
Exactly.
You're piecing together the puzzle of their physical symptoms, but you're also, addressing their emotional and mental well-being.
It's a lot more than just cracking bones.
It's a lot more than I initially thought, I'll be honest.
And that's what makes it so interesting. This career path, it really does require a pretty unique blend of scientific knowledge, empathy, communication skills. You've got to have it all.
Okay, so we've established this isn't a walk in the park.
No.
You need this, like, unique mix of brains and compassion to succeed.
Yeah.
But let's get real for a second. What's the day-to-day actually like?
Yeah.
Is it all back cracks and deep tissue massages, or are there other,
Right.
perhaps more, dare I say, glamorous aspects of the job?
Yeah, glamorous.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't know about glamorous.
Right.
RoleCatcher's breakdown of osteopath duties, it paints a pretty realistic picture.
Yeah.
It can be physically demanding, being on your feet a lot, potentially lifting and manipulating patients.
Yeah, it's definitely not a desk job.
Right.
But, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Technology, it's kind of changing the game.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher mentioned telehealth and all these digital health tools.
That's right. They were talking about things like virtual appointments and apps to track your progress and things like that.
Exactly.
So it's not your grandparents' osteopath anymore. It's very, very 21st century.
Very, very cool.
It is. Thinking about those long hours on your feet, though,
Yeah.
it's interesting how tech is changing things. Do you think it might even make the profession more appealing to a younger generation?
I think it already is.
Yeah,
Being able to integrate those hands-on techniques with this cutting-edge tech, it's really exciting.
right.
Not only does it enhance, patient care, but it also allows for people to get treated who maybe couldn't before.
Right.
People in more remote areas, people with mobility issues.
Yeah, it really is bridging that gap.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about the cool tech, the demanding but rewarding work.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real. I mean, no job is perfect, right?
Right.
What about the tough stuff, the challenges, the things that nobody really tells you about?
Well, like any healthcare job, managing expectations can be tricky.
Right.
Sometimes people come in expecting, a quick fix,
Yeah.
and it's really important to take the time to educate them about the process and realistic goals.
Being honest with them.
Exactly, even when it's difficult.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you've got the whole healthcare system to navigate, dealing with insurance companies, paperwork, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, not so much fun.
Not the most glamorous side of healing, but it's part of it.
It is, absolutely. And I imagine there's also kind of an emotional toll, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're dealing with people who are in pain.
All the time.
It can't be easy
It takes a certain kind of person to be able to handle that day in and day out.
to have that strength, but also that empathy.
Absolutely.
Because you're not just fixing a physical problem, you're really supporting them,
Supporting them through a really difficult time.
being their advocate.
Exactly, that steady presence on the road to recovery.
It sounds like it takes a really special kind of person to be an osteopath.
It does.
Someone with both a strong scientific mind
Yeah,
and a compassionate heart.
you got it both.
So for those who are drawn to this path, who are ready to do the work, to embrace the challenges,
Hmm.
what does a successful career in osteopathy actually look like?
Well, RoleCatcher mentioned that you often start by assisting a more seasoned osteopath.
Kind of learning the ropes, working your way towards, having your own practice one day.
Right.
But the really cool thing is the specialization, I think.
Yeah.
You could focus on sports medicine, pediatrics. You could even work in a larger healthcare system.
So there are so many options.
Tons of options.
You could really build a career that speaks to what you're passionate about.
Exactly.
It's pretty remarkable how many different paths you can forge within osteopathy.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
Not at all. This has been a really eye-opening deep dive for me.
Yeah.
I went from thinking it was all about backs to being honestly blown away by how expansive it really is.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's about so much more than just fixing bones. It's about improving lives.
It really is.
And with that in mind, before we wrap up, I have one final question for you, dear listener.
Oh, I like this.
We've talked about how technology is changing the game.
But what do you think the future holds for osteopathy? What excites you about this field? What role do you see yourself playing? Just something to ponder as you continue your exploration.
Such a great question to leave us with.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of osteopathy. And until next time, keep those brains engaged and those questions coming.